Good morning and welcome to the City of Rapid City Planning Commission for April 5th, 2018. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the Planning Commission agenda, there are speaker request forms on the table along the left wall. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the staff seated on the left of the dais. At this time, we would also like to ask that if any member of the audience has a cell phone or other electronic device, that you please turn it off or turn the ringer to silent. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hallway so the meeting is not disrupted. Items 1 through 8 have been placed on the consent calendar and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this Planning Commission are recommendations to the City Council. The City Council will make the final decision with the exception of the following items. Item 7, 18 PD 009, and Item 8, 18 PD 012. The Rapid City Planning Commission's actions on these items are final unless any party appeals the decision to the City Council. All appeals must be submitted in writing to the Department of Community Development by close of business on the 7th full calendar day following action by the Planning Commission. Are there any items 1 through 8 that staff would like to remove?
Item number 7, please.
Any items 1 through 8 that the Planning Commission would like to remove? And are there any other items 1 through 8 that the audience would like removed? 7? Yep. The chair would then look for a motion to approve items 1 through 6 and item 8 in accordance with staff's recommendation.
So moved.
Galen made the motion to approve items 1 through 6 and item 8 per staff recommendation. Karen seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7.
Good morning. Item number 7 is 18 PD 009, a final plan development to allow an apartment complex. Property is located at 3124 Champion Drive, southeast of the intersection of Catherine Avenue and Champion Drive. The property is currently zoned medium-density residential district with a planned development designation. The medium-density residential district allows for multifamily dwellings. Currently, the property is void of any structural development. Properties to the north along south side of Catherine Avenue are being developed with townhomes. Future land use of the property identifies it as urban neighborhood. And here we see it in the context, the property is located west of Haynes Avenue. In particular, the applicant's proposing an apartment complex that will be built in 2 phases. Phase 1 is 3 apartment buildings located on the north side of the property. A total of 72 units, so 36 units with Phase 1, and Phase 2 would include another 36 units in 3 buildings. The proposed buildings are 3 stories in height. One of the great things about this proposed project is there's a 25-foot setback from the north property line to the back of the garages. Then there's a row of garages that are being provided as for parking, but also as storage and act as a buffer between the properties to the north and the apartment complexes. Then we have the parking aisle, additional parking, and then an additional setback to the buildings. So whereas the minimum required setback for a 3-story apartment building would be 12 feet from that north property line, they are actually 122 feet from that north property line. So really providing some separation, which has been a concern in the past. Landscape plan, so they'll additionally be putting some trees between the areas where there aren't going to be garages, and then the great courtyard in this middle area is providing open space for the apartment complex. Elevations of the proposed buildings and of the proposed garages. Here we're looking into the property. To the east, on that far side, you see mini warehousing which had been approved in the past. This is looking to the north and the townhomes that are being built along Catherine Avenue. Looking to the south, where it's undeveloped, but then there's some residential development south of the area. Looking north along Champion Drive towards the intersection with Catherine and the predominantly single-family and townhome development to the north. This is looking to the northwest. I believe that's Vicky Powers Park that you can see in this area, but a lot of the land is currently undeveloped. And directly to the west and to the southwest. The proposed apartment complex supports comprehensive plan goals of adding different types of housing into neighborhoods and increasing the amount of housing we have in the area. And in addition, the applicant is not requesting any exceptions from the underlying area regulations of the medium density residential district. In fact, for the size of the lot, 137 apartment units could be constructed on this property, provided they had landscaping, drainage, and parking. They're proposing a total of 72 units. With that, staff is recommending that the final plan development be approved with the stipulations noted in the staff report. Are there any questions for staff?
Thanks, Fletcher. I don't see any questions up, but I do have 2 speaker request forms. Trevor Shoemaker, if you'd like to go over to the microphone here and identify yourself and address.
Trevor Shoemaker, live at 627 Catherine, one of the duplexes shown in the picture there. First off, I got a question. You mentioned putting in trees between the garage and the duplex areas. That is basically a 20-foot ditch. So is that going to be filled and then trees placed in? So it will be placed on the outside of the ditch. Okay. That's the only question. Okay, and see, when I step out my back door, I see that field. And then to the left, I don't know if you noticed, I see that big American flag. I enjoy that. And then to the right, of course, I can see the park. And if I step out my back door and see garages and a 3-story complex, it's going to take away from the effect, especially if I own the house. So if I have to move, selling is going to be hard with the complex behind it. Looking at a complex is going to take away from the value, from the skyline, everything. So I'm thinking into the future, being military, selling the house or even renting it out. What type of housing is this going to be? Is this going to be just regular apartment complexes? Like, what's the price going on these things?
I don't think we have any information on that, unfortunately. Vicki?
I would assume that this is going to be similar to what Joe Muth has constructed in the area. I don't know what his monthly rates are, but there's several other developments in the area that I think he's replicating on this property. It's not a level of information that we can ask as a part of an application.
Right, okay, thank you.
So we have no idea if it's low income or anything?
I would guess his previous ones are market rate, not subsidized in any fashion. It's hard to say on this one, though. Just unit count-wise, I would doubt it's low
Looking at
income
the
or subsidized.
elevations, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, looking at the elevations, it appears that these will continue to be market rate, not affordable or low-income housing.
Okay, and also furthermore, in the plans for the additional traffic of people that are going to start moving in, do we have plans for a stoplight at Catherine and Haynes or a separate exit at the end of Champaign. Because right now, even getting out of that area, getting onto Haynes right now, I'll sit at that stop sign for a good 10 minutes.
Vicki?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the proposed development does not trigger a traffic impact study. Obviously, the master planning for this area shows that there will be, Champion will eventually connect and provide a second point of access. As it is now, though, once you take Champion and go north, there are different avenues out. If one becomes problematic at Catherine, you could find another exit out. But at this point, the city has no plans to put a traffic light along Haynes Avenue. The traffic that's there today doesn't warrant any signaling of that intersection. And it's not anticipated that this development would trigger that as well.
Thanks, Vicki.
Have you ever tried to get out on Catherine at 7 in the morning? Because I have. And you said for actual appeals, it has to be in writing, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's all I have. Thank you. Unless you have questions for me.
Anyone on the commission have questions? I also have one from Autumn Shoemaker. Would you like to speak as well? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Vicki.
you know, we certainly appreciate the concerns of existing single-family residential homeowners when they buy their property, either their home is built or they build it, and they're adjacent to a property that's zoned for multifamily. I don't know why these things aren't disclosed to them when they're looking at purchasing their homes, but as you've seen in the past in this area and other areas, if they were to come in most instances, with one large building, it's just a building permit. You wouldn't even see those applications. The fact that they're breaking it out into smaller structures instead of one huge one minimizes the impact. So that kind of becomes the dilemma that we face with these multifamily residential lots. At the time that these developments are created, they bring in a master plan. That master plan shows, before any single-family home is ever platted, constructed, and the home builders build on it, that there's going to be multifamily in the area. I don't know how we can get the developers to better relay that to all potential buyers, that the master plan for the area includes that multifamily development at some point. And the single-family homes always build out first before the multifamily. So it seems to be an ongoing dilemma, and one will continue to work with the developers to try to improve.
Thanks, Vicki. Questions or comments on this item from the commission? Vince?
Yes, I mean, I agree with Vicki here. I think, I don't know if I can even ask you or if you're willing to share this information with me, but who was your realtor? I'm sorry, say it again, please.
I'm Autumn Shoemaker.
And I was wondering if you would tell me who your realtor was, or who?
I went through Josiah LaFrance, and then whoever the other realtor was on that side. But they didn't disclose any information about an apartment complex going up or anything when I got the home.
Mm-hmm.
I just heard later on after I purchased that they were talking about putting in a low-income apartment right directly behind my home.
They said that to you?
No, just kind of through like the neighborhood grapevine.
Okay,
So.
all right. Well, thank you. You know, when I moved into a home here on the south side, my realtor shared with me what was going to come. I mean, that was the realtor, and of course, the builder knew that too. So, I mean, I'm agreeing with Vicki that there's got to be a better way to disclose this information to the homeowners. I just wanted to put that in there. Thank you.
Rachel? Excuse me.
Yeah, so, you know, when we bought a house, we looked at the neighborhood, and we looked at the schools, and we looked at the crime map, and we looked at the sex offender registry. maybe this is something that the Rapid City Journal could put out, just a little clip that you should also check the zoning map, just to see, what's going to be in your area. It always makes sense to kind of look ahead when you're going to make an investment like a home, to just kind of see what's on the zoning map, and I think it just doesn't occur to a lot of people. I know our realtor never said anything about it either. And then, the second thing, I keep hearing this thing about low-income housing. I live by some HUD apartments, and I have no problems. We have a very well-managed, kind of group of townhomes in our neighborhood, and it kind of bothers me to hear that kind of put out as like, something that you don't want in your neighborhood, because everybody needs a place to live. So, thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Any additional questions on this, comments? If not, I'd look for a motion on the item. Galen made the motion to approve this item per staff recommendations, and Rachel seconded that motion. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Item number 9.
Item number 9 is 18 PD 006. It was continued from the March 22nd meeting to today's meeting, directing the applicant to continue to work with staff to provide a revised site plan for the fence. The applicant has not submitted that revised site plan at this time, and staff is recommending that the major amendment be continued to the April 26th Planning Commission meeting.
Karen made the motion to continue to April 26th.
Second.
Galen seconded that motion. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10.
Item number 10 is 18 PD 007, a major amendment to a plan development to allow an on-sale liquor establishment in conjunction with a restaurant. This is located at Tuscany Square. Property zone general commercial district with a planned development. In past years, we've seen on-sale or major amendments to allow on-sale in conjunction with a salon on the property, and then there's also another application next, which will be on-sale liquor establishment in conjunction with a home improvement store. Property to the north is flood hazard and light industrial, and it's located just east of the intersection, or southeast of the intersection of Omaha Street and 5th Street. Developed property with basically commercial strip mall, and no additional development is proposed. It's strictly for the on-sale liquor use, which is a conditional use in the general commercial district. Showing the future land use plan, and then you can see that 5th Street and Omaha are identified as principal arterial streets on the city's major street plan. Here we have site plan showing parking. The use does not trigger additional parking be provided. And then this identifies the suite location within on the property of what is Boss's Pizza and Chicken, which is an existing restaurant located on the property. And the applicant's proposing to serve beer to customers ordering pizza. Here we have a picture from the applicant showing existing signage and the elevation of the building. And then you can see in the window, the signs are posted, and some of the other uses within that this commercial mall. Goodyear to the east, electrical to the north, as well as floodway and park. And then looking west towards the intersection of Omaha and 5th, and development in that area, and east along Omaha. And then they're also located on the same block as Bank West. And here we have some of the other uses within this commercial area. Black Hills Flooring is the other applicant for the next application. And again, looking at the parking and building, looking towards the south. One of the stipulations of approval is that the on-sale liquor use be operated in conjunction with a restaurant, so it won't just end up being a bar in this location. And any expansion of the use would require a major amendment to the plan development. With that, staff is recommending that the major amendment be approved with stipulations noted in the staff report.
Thanks, Fletcher. Any questions for staff on this? Kurt?
Yeah, and you said this doesn't trigger any additional parking, correct?
Yes.
Reading through the report, they were given an exception to the parking back in, when this was first proposed years ago. And I saw something in there that said that if there's complaints about lack of parking, it would be revisited. Has there been any issues with parking out there that we know of?
The only issue that we've had is Headlines Academy has leased off-site parking, which they need to maintain. They do have leases in place through, I believe, November. So if they don't renew their lease in November, you'll see a major amendment to reduce parking for Headlines Academy. The reason we're trying to keep them separated is because we don't want Headlines Academy parking issue to affect the on-sale, the conditional use permit for Boss's Pizza and Chicken.
Okay. Yeah, I know every time I've been in that plaza, there's always been plenty of parking, so it seems adequate anyway, but that's my only comments. Thanks.
Move to approve for recommendation.
Galen made the motion to approve item 10 per staff recommendations, and Rachel seconded that motion. Is there further discussion to be had on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 11.
Item number 11 is 18 PD 008, a major amendment to the plan development to allow an on-sale liquor establishment in conjunction with a home improvement store. And this is for Black Hills Flooring, which is also located in the Tuscany Square commercial mall. Again, general commercial with a plan development. Site plan showing the parking. This one is located in Suite 1 of the larger building on the property, which is closer to Omaha Street. Applicant's elevation with signage. Again, looking at the front of their store. And then this is, you can see the signs posted in the windows, again showing the uses in the area to the north on Omaha Street, back towards 5th and Omaha, east along Omaha, and the other uses within this block. The applicant is requesting the on-sale to serve wine and beer to customers of their home improvement store to make their shopping experience a little more fun. Again, the conditional use permit or conditional use would be in conjunction with the home improvement store, and any expansion of use or change in use would require a major amendment to the plan development. And with that, staff is recommending approval.
Thanks, Fletcher. Rachel?
Yeah, I think it's kind of neat trying to find new ways to bring in your clientele and make them happy. Is the applicant in the audience?
Yes.
Okay. I just have a question for you about your training regarding alcohol. So my basic question is, when you go to a bar or a restaurant, you kind of expect to be there for a while. So if you have a beer or two, you know that you've got enough time to be able to maybe get back out on the road after time has elapsed. But a home improvement store is a little bit different. People might be popping in and out. So I was wondering kind of what level of training that you guys are implementing with your staff, if people are going to get TAM training, and if, you know, you guys are going to be making sure that people are, you know, you're doing your job to make sure that people are actually enjoying this safely.
Yes, from what I understand, if you
I'm
do
sorry,
get
could you
a...
identify yourself first
Oh.
before your comments?
My name is Pam Risavi. I'm one of the owners of Black Hills Flooring. And from what I understand, when you get a wine and beer license, you do go through training, and that training would carry through to our staff as well.
Okay, fantastic. That's everything for me.
Thank you.
Karen?
Thank you, and maybe you want to come back up to the podium if you don't mind. My question, I guess, is how many other retail stores do this? I've never heard of anybody going to a retail store to purchase something and then having offered that. I can understand if you're going to have an event or something like that where you'd invite the public and have them mill around for an hour or something, but I'm just curious to know what prompted this.
Well, it's following the same concept as the hair salons. A lot of the hair salons are doing this as well.
And I can understand a hair salon, you're there for an hour or whatever to do that. I guess I'm following up a little bit on Rachel's idea of people walking in to purchase something, whether it's flooring or lighting or whatever it is, you're there to purchase something for your home. It's not something that normally people would go to have a glass of wine while they're walking around looking at carpet,
Well,
I guess. I'm just...
Our shopping experience is a little different than some home improvement stores, such as a Lowe's or a Menards. Ours is more of a customized approach. Our customers do spend quite a bit of time in our store making final selections, looking at designs. It's not uncommon for a customer to be in our store for an hour or more when they're in the process of signing the contract and going through everything.
Okay, I was just curious, I guess, more than anything else. I wish you well with it. I wouldn't do that. I'd be trying to keep my head up, you know, straight so I knew what I was doing, I guess. So, thank you. I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Kurt?
Maybe you need to stay up there. Are you selling beer and wine or just serving it?
No, it's just complimentary
Okay,
to
so
select customers,
It's not going to have a bar and
No,
what you belly
it's
up
not.
to. And
offered to anyone just walking in the door. It's more when you get to that more further along in the sales process approach.
okay, all right, that's all I had.
Right, thank you.
Mike Kwasny?
And that was my question. I guess it would have to be, as you're going along in the sales process, I would think it could draw people in. So your plan is not to use that as a draw. It's more to, we're going to sit down, we're going to talk about this deal, and we're going to have a glass of wine over it.
Yes, exactly.
Sounds like the price goes up. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any other lights up. Are there any other questions or comments on this item prior to action? If not, I'd look for a motion on it. Motion to approve. Mike Goller made the motion to approve per staff recommendations, and Kurt seconded that motion. Are there any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 12.
Mr. Chair, if we could take items 12, 13, and 14 together in presentation, and then we'll see if we can also act on them together or if we need to act on them separately.
Okay, sounds good, Vicki.
So this is a preliminary subdivision plan for Johnson Ranch, which you've seen Phase 1 of Johnson Ranch come before you already. It's at the eastern terminus of Johnson Ranch Road. It's bordered to the north by East St. Patrick's Street, East Highway 44 to the northeast, and then that's Elkville Road along the southeast lot line. This shows that East St. Patrick's Street, actually this is our future land use plan. It shows this as a low-density neighborhood development. We've got arterial streets St. Pat 44 and Elkville Road that border this property, and then South Valley Drive is a collector street. The preliminary subdivision plan, the first item on the agenda, is to create 52 single-family residential lots, 1 multifamily lot, 4 commercial lots, and 2 tracts. Just so that you better understand the boundaries of what it is that we're looking at. We're coming down here. There we go. This is the multifamily lot that is being proposed just north of our single-family residential lots that are being proposed within this area. The phasing plan of the development, Phase 1, that in the very southwest corner, has previously been approved, and those homes are currently under construction. Phase 2 is the area that's shown in green, and then Phase 3 and 4 would be these areas. Similar to, for further explanation, the other 2 items on the agenda, item number 13 is an initial and final plan development that would be for these single-family homes and includes the commitment that the park area will be constructed as a part of that phase of the development. And then the last item on the agenda is an initial plan development for the 35 residential lots that are shown in Phase 4. Similar to what they proposed for Phase 1, they've come in requesting to reduce the lot size from 6,500 square feet down to a minimum lot size of 4,922 for this area and 4,890 for this area. As a part of this, the commitment is that the park will be constructed and serve as a community area for these 3 phases, as well as Phase 1 to also use. In looking at the acreage divided by the number of lots, it puts that average lot size over 7,300 square feet. So on average, it does meet the lot size requirements of a single-family residential lot of 6,500 square feet. We've done this in other areas. One that jumps to mind is one called PLM subdivision, where we had rough terrain, and some of the lots encompassed ravines with large acreage, and others were up on a ridgeline. And so we looked at the average to ensure that overall, based on that acreage, it did not exceed the lot count. And this meets that same formula. As a part of this, they are also requesting to reduce the width of the lot from 50 feet to 46 feet. Part of the reason why we like that 50-foot building line width at the front of the property is to ensure that there's sufficient on-street parking. So in working with the applicants, there is a requirement within the plating review that they provide 1 visitor parking space per lot. This site plan has been submitted to show that they can provide 1 additional visitor parking spot in the street for each of the lots. Those spaces have to be within 300 feet of the residences, and they meet that requirement as well. Part of that is with the commitment that the approach widths not be more than 20 feet, and the infrastructure design criteria manual allows 24. So we've requested that a note be placed on the plat so that any future builder will have access to it that says that a maximum approach width of 20 feet is allowed. Please note that in Phase 1, they currently are constructed with 20-foot wide approaches, and it's our understanding that the same builder is going to be building out this next few phases as well. I'll just go back and we'll hit on the last exception. There's also a requirement that the lot coverage not exceed 30%. They are proposing 35% in lieu of 30, and that is due to the smaller lots. In the master plan and a part of the preliminary subdivision plan, that's the first item on the agenda, there are 2 tracks, one here and one here, that are being reserved for drainage to accommodate the additional runoff that would be created as a result of this increase in density. The applicants also indicated that any off-site improvements as needed would be addressed as a part of this development. The next step in platting, the development engineering plan application, when it is submitted to staff for an administrative review, it's required to have a full drainage plan with construction plans for our review and approval. So because the preliminary, the plat has to be approved before we issue building permits for any future development, that drainage component will be in place before we've got folks out there living. This is looking into the site. Again, looking at what the overall terrain looks like for the proposed development, and it is about 32 acres of property that's identified in the preliminary subdivision plan, looking to the south. This is looking back west along Johnson Ranch Road. Again, you'll see that the school that you previously approved is being constructed. That's it in the background. These are some pictures of the existing residences that have been constructed in phase 1 with the smaller lots and the lot coverage and also the lot widths, similar to what's being requested today, and I would assume that the elevations will be somewhat similar, looking at that same development from another angle. So part of the compromise that we've looked at in trying to work with the developer on securing the density that he needed is to ensure that we're addressing some of the disadvantages that may result from those exceptions. The on-street parking has been met by showing us that they can park in the street. We will stipulate that the width of that approach not be more than 20 feet. There'll be drainage improvements for the additional densities, and the overall density does not exceed what would otherwise be allowed if this were outside of a planned development. So with that, we are recommending that the preliminary subdivision plan that includes phases 2, 3, and 4 be approved, that for phase 2, which is the initial and final plan development, your next item on the agenda, we are recommending that it be approved with the exceptions and the requirement that the park be constructed as a part of that phase. We want to get that common area in place and available to the neighborhood with this next phase of residential development. And then 3, the final plan development for the last 35 single-family residential homes, we are also recommending that it be approved with the same exceptions. So if you have any questions for me, and Kyle is here as the consultant for the applicant, if you've got questions for him.
So we took the presentations at the same time. Does the commission have any issue with deciding these at the same time, or do we want to divide them up? I see no objections, so we'll act on items 12, 13, and 14 in conjunction with each other. Mike Kwasny.
I like the park. We discussed this the last time, I think. It's a great addition to that area. Part of this was to help in the affordable housing area. What is the average cost of these houses? I think at the time that they presented it, they discussed affordable housing and that we're working towards that. Do we have a cost right now as these houses are going in?
Mr. Chair, I think I'd like the consultant to speak to the cost.
You bet.
The homes
Can you
themselves.
identify yourself?
Kyle Trelor with KTM Design Solutions.
Thank you.
Project representative. Right now, there is one building group that's building all of these homes, and they've got 4 or 5 different models that they're constructing. The prices are ranging from about 160 on the low side up to about 190 on the high side. And that's a variation of there's basements, some are finished basements, some are not. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths versus 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. But that 160 to 190 range.
Okay. I have a question then on the street, and I don't know if Vicki would need to answer this, or if, I'm assuming it'd be Vicki. We talked, they're going to be parking more on the street because of, they're going to have less space between so they can fit one car. So the potential is to have cars on both sides of the street. Is there any consideration as to having the street a little wider in this situation?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Vicki.
So it's required that they provide 2 on-site parking spaces per residence, and they're doing that. Those are double-stalled garages.
Sure.
So you'll have parking in the garage and then 2 parking spaces behind the garage. So they're exceeding what would be required there. The one common area parking space per lot, as shown in the one graphic, and I can pull that back up for you, it does provide for on-street parking that meets the requirement that each lot has visitor parking, let's say. And it's not that we anticipate that everyone will have a visitor at the same time, but we all know that we have events. Maybe it's a graduation or a birthday party, and we have company come. And all of these developments, one of the things that we look at is to ensure that when you've got company coming to visit you, that they can park up and down the street. These are local streets, so they're 52 feet in width with a 26-foot wide pavement. And part of keeping them to that dimension is it greatly slows down traffic as people meander through those parked areas. Most of our residential streets in town are local streets. In my neighborhood, you've got to slow down and take your turn, and that probably keeps it safer for children. So with this meeting the requirement, similar to what we would see in other developments where the lot width is a little wider and the lot size is a little bigger, that parking would still lay out similarly with the local street.
Okay, then at the end of this, when it goes on to St. Pat, there was a discussion, I believe, before when we discussed this. They only come out onto St. Pat turning right. They will not be able to turn left, or how is that?
Ted, could I have you assist me with that one?
Thank you. No, the access at St. Pat will be a full turning movement. They'll be able to go right or left, either direction. So they're taking out part of that median that's there, creating a full movement intersection.
Okay. Do they need to widen that St. Pat area to make that happen, or?
No, it's already wide enough. There was, before the Elkville connector was put through there was an intersection here that turned and went north. They're basically reestablishing that intersection. There was a median put in to prevent traffic from trying to turn south, but they're taking it out and it's basically going back to the original configuration. There is adequate pavement width for the turning movements.
Okay, thank you.
Kurt?
My questions relate more to the lot size and densities. When we last heard, I think it was phase 1, and there was exceptions for the lot size and setbacks, I believe. I can't remember if setbacks were on that, but there was something about the, having to sprinkle the buildings because they were so close. Does anything here trigger that?
I've actually got a request from the fire liaison to speak. Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The original layout of this particular project did in fact was in fact looking for a reduction in side yard setbacks, which we utilized the fire sprinkler protection as an option to support that. Since that time, they have reduced the footprint of the home or configuration of it to where it meets the actual setbacks. So I don't have any mechanism to apply that. However, I have had conversations with the developer early on with the Johnson Ranch Road, Phase 4 of this. There's actually 22 lots on that particular extension of the street, and 20 is typically the maximum for a single cul-de-sac. So historically, our remedy to that is to utilize residential fire sprinkler protection for that entire section to support the added lots or reduction in lots as necessary. So that was one of my questions earlier, was whether or not if that has been addressed yet or not. So.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Yeah, Vicki?
So Phase 1, as well as what we're being proposed here, there are no reductions in setbacks at the end of the day. It's a good memory, Kurt, that you remembered that discussion. One of the reasons being also that we did get notified by one of the utility companies that reducing those easements for utilities created some conflict. And so they wanted to ensure that we were preserving that 8-foot wide minor drainage and utility easement along all lot lines. And these are one-story homes, so the setback's only 8 foot. So that part of it's been removed from the plan. They'll meet all setbacks. And on the cul-de-sac that Tim referenced, the developers indicated that he will not plat or build more than 20 homes on that cul-de-sac.
Okay.
Good to know.
And also, Vicki, you had said something about, if you take the number of lots, and divide it into the acreage, it came up to like an average of 7,500 7,300 square feet. Is that just what's on the application now, or does that take into consideration all the property out there, including the Phase 1 that's already been approved?
So what it included was this area right in here. It did not include the commercial or the multifamily or this area. We didn't feel that was fair. This is the common area that will be provided as a part of the residential development, so that's the only additional acreage that we calculated into it.
Okay. It just seems like we're trying to pack a lot of houses in a small area, making all these exceptions, with lot width and depth and percentage of development within each lot. I guess I saw something in the report that said that this is supposed to be affordable housing, and keeping the lots at price at somewhere like $35,000, and it's going to build a home that's going to sell for like $165,000 to $200,000. Is that kind of the range of affordable housing?
I don't know if I'm the right person to speak to that, and certainly we didn't use the affordable housing argument as a part of our recommendation to you today. What we looked at instead is the comprehensive plan, and in that it encourages us that where possible we should increase densities to minimize the acreage that's needed in order to provide residential development for Rapid City. And in looking at this, ensuring that quality of life, safety along the street section, open space for the residents, the reason behind why we require these minimums, we looked at how they were addressing it. Again, I'm not the one to speak to the affordable housing. Okay. My understanding is that the 160 to 180 is within that acceptable range, but I don't have the experience in that field to say yes.
Okay, fair enough. I have no further questions.
Thanks, Kurt. John?
The park, how big is that? Acre and a half, maybe?
You can't expect me to read this, Kyle.
Including, so the entire green space is about 2.5 acres, but the park, you know, the area really dedicated for the park where the infrastructure would be put in is closer to that acre and a half area.
So who's going to maintain that?
So the developer is currently working with the Parks and Rec Department, and we've started conversations months ago about the city taking over ownership of it. So the developer would construct it, and then the city would own it and maintain it. And similar to what we've seen in other residential developments, it's rare those developers will do that, but Mr. Bigler has made it clear that that's a win for the city if we can get them to provide it at that level for city's ownership.
Mike, again, Kwasny.
That 7,300 also included that drainage and the park, correct?
Actually, thank you, Mike. It did not. In drawing this before, got a little crazy with my line. We went along this area because this won't be available to be accessed by the families. So we tried to only include, oops, yeah, that's right in here, only include the open space that's actually going to be available for families to utilize.
Okay, thank you.
Good clarification.
Karen?
Thank you. Vicki, didn't we do something similar to this with smaller lots and stuff up north, close to Haynes and up in that neighborhood? And do you know how that's been working out as far as resale value, as far as, you know, any issues with those smaller lots up there?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
So I don't believe that those homes are having any problem reselling. So I don't think there is an issue with that. But we've not had complaints, which is usually how we find out if there's an issue, with parking and drainage. Those were addressed as a part of that, and you're referencing Catlin subdivision. And that was an experimental subdivision. Those were significantly smaller than these. Lots are being proposed with reduced setbacks in addition. But even so, with the parking that's available behind garages and inside of garages, we're not hearing complaints of lack of parking, which is usually the big one, is lack of parking in the street.
Okay, and that was the only area that we've done that smaller lots in the community? Do you know if there's any others?
We've done several over the years where we've allowed for smaller lots with the condition that the average, that it meets the minimum size. As an example, there's a lot here that's 30,000 square feet, well over what would be required for a single-family home. So when you start doing the math, it's easy to see how this number of lots could meet the 7,300 square foot average. And we've done that in areas where we've had topographic constraints, maybe some limitations because they've got right-of-way on 3 sides, because those are excessive setbacks. So we've gotten creative with those developers with the condition that they not exceed the average density of 6,500.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Any further questions or comments on this item? I'm out of lights for speakers. If not, I'd look for a motion on items 12, 13, and 14. Galen made the motion to approve items 12, 13, and 14 with staff recommendations. Is there a second? Mike Goller seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
I believe Kurt was the only no. Motion carries. I think we're out of items. Any discussion items? Kip, I think you have something, right?
Good morning, Kip Harrington, Long Range Planning. From time to time, we come to Planning Commission and ask that they direct us to revise the major street plan. As development occurs, we take a look at some of our undeveloped areas and some of our road alignments. We identify some issues with that. We have some minor alignment tweaks and things like that as we've identified in our undeveloped areas. Notification requirements generally would require us to notify the whole city via certified mail if we were to do this, but the Planning Commission can direct us, and that circumvents that notification requirement. Makes it a lot easier for us and a lot less expensive as well. So we've got a list of things that we'd like to address in the major street plan, and with your direction, we can go forward with that and then bring that to you in the near future.
Karen?
Thank you, Kip. I agree with it. Just one question. Is this all over the city? There's various places
Yeah, we've
throughout the city?
identified different areas as development has occurred. We've got some agreements between landowners that allow us to move collector streets, things like that. So there's no specific area. We've got a few small ones here and there all throughout the area.
Okay, thank you. I make a motion that we direct staff to go out and do a major revision to this street plan, major street plan.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So Karen made the motion and Mike Kwasny seconded that motion to direct staff to prepare major street plan revisions. I guess I have one question on this. When you say it'll come back, will it come back as a major street plan revision with all these?
Yes, it'll be a comprehensive plan
associated-
amendment, and we will have maps identifying the current alignment and the revised alignment for each of those areas, so you'll get a whole presentation on what has changed and why it's being changed.
Gotcha. Excellent. Thank you. Any further questions or comments on this one? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. You're
Thank you.
so directed. Any other items? Look, Kurt.
I'd just like to congratulate Ted Johnson on his new title. He's now the new city engineer.
Look for a motion to adjourn. Karen made the motion and Mike Kwasny seconded that motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?